Hey the people, how you doing? So, today we have the complete comparison for the S21 Ultra versus the iPhone 12 series as a whole. Now the reason I'm saying series is because I've been using the iPhone 12 and that's the iPhone I have right now. But the S21 Ultra, as anyone would guess, is made to compete with the highest end iPhone, the iPhone 12 Pro Max. So I will be pointing out the areas where the iPhone 12 Pro Max is going to be better than the iPhone 12. So let's get started with the design, and we're gonna keep the other parts nice and short because there are a lot of things to talk about, especially in the cameras. So for the design, I prefer the S21 Ultra, like right off the bat. The back is obviously more unique on the S21 Ultra, and yeah, the iPhone 12 Pro Max does have a matte finish, so that's one thing that is fairly common on both, but the camera module does look a lot more bold with the metal encasing and all that. It looks different from majority of the other camera modules that we have in so many other smartphones, the iPhones included in that. But what really makes me just choose the S21 Ultra is quite simply the front. The iPhone looks dated, we all know it. It's the iPhone X design, like from 2017 or something. It's the exact same thing we have here, and that does not look good right now. It's just not good enough. Like the S21 Ultra on the other hand, way better. Like we have just the minor curves, makes it a lot more comfortable to hold. It looks better, looks more premium. We have a modern design, just a single punch hole compared to a ginormous notch. I mean, it's obvious. The S21 Ultra, in my opinion, easily takes a win for design. And the same can be said for the displays as well. The S21 Ultra once again takes a massive win here, because I don't really think I need to say this out loud, but with the feature set that the S21 Ultra has for its displays, the iPhones don't even come close. This goes for every single iPhone out there. The S21 Ultra with 1440p 120Hz and the 1500 nits of peak brightness, it's just all in all an incredible display. And the iPhones could have been just as good. They are pretty much just as good, except for the 120Hz. That's a major loss for iPhones as a whole. Like, I personally don't really understand why would Apple make a flagship that doesn't have 120Hz? I get it, yeah. They have customers who would buy iPhones just for the ecosystem alone. That's understandable, but still, like, not having 120Hz is like, I can guess that many people don't really enjoy 60Hz as much, especially if you've already had a little taste of 90 or 120Hz. Now let's move on to performance and battery life. Well, performance as a whole, what would you expect? We have the A14 Bionic, and Apple, if they do one thing better than any other smartphone manufacturer out there right now, is that they can make some of the most powerful chipsets out there. That's the story of the iPhone 12's A14 Bionic, and not even the Snapdragon variant of the S21 Ultra can even come close to the amount of raw horsepower that you have from the A14 Bionic here. So yeah, performance is even on the iPhone here, unlike the other two categories before that. Now for battery life as a whole, well, I would say the iPhone 12 comes close. It doesn't really get as much screen on time as the S21 Ultra. Like, this one has tremendous battery life right here. It's a vastly different story from what we had last year, so battery life is amazing. It's a 5000 mAh battery, so you're gonna get intensely good battery life here. Now, standby time as a whole, I think that iPhones still, like, they are the king when it comes to standby time, and especially because we don't have an always on display on the iPhone, so it's obviously gonna have better standby time than the S21 Ultra. Now the iPhone 12 Pro Max, well, with its larger cell, it could quite possibly get much better battery life than the iPhone 12 I've got here. So maybe the iPhone 12 Pro Max and the S21 Ultra's battery life would be fairly similar if you ask me. Like, both have amazing battery life, but I would say that overall, like for normal usage, I think the S21 Ultra does take a slight win, especially like if you think about it, we do have 120Hz running at 1440p and I'm getting like 6 to 6.5 hours of screen on time. That's a lot of battery life. Now, we can finally talk about the cameras, because let's face it, that is, after all, the most interesting part about these two smartphones. Well, for photography, I think the S21 Ultra is actually better here. Like, if you think about it, we have amazing processing on both. The iPhone usually goes for a lower contrast, less vibrant, a flatter look with the images, while the S21 Ultra, well, I like the direction that the S21 Ultra's processing has been going, the color processing in particular. It does have a more natural tone to it while also maintaining a good amount of punchiness, vibrancy and contrast. I personally really like how the photographs turn out. It's very well balanced on the S21 Ultra here. But as I said, personal preference is going to be a major factor here. Where the S21 Ultra does get technical win is with versatility. We have 3 times and 10 times optical zoom. It's incredible to say the least, as you'd expect, like 10 times optical zoom along with the 3 times for the medium range zooms. It's the perfect setup for the ultimate level of versatility that you could possibly imagine from a smartphone. The iPhones as a whole do not come close. Like, iPhones are not made for versatility, for photography or videography as a whole. The versatility on iPhones is basically absent. You have a 2.5 times maximum zoom on the iPhone 12 Pro Max, but that's it. You cannot go any further without actually just entirely dunking on quality. The sheer versatility that Samsung offers here, that easily warrants a major win in normal daylight photography. But when it comes to night mode photography, well, there once again the S21 Ultra takes a massive win. Not because it can do 10 times night mode photos. I know those are rare instances when you would use a feature like that. It's there though. You can't do that on the iPhones as you'd expect. I think for the main cameras, the S21 Ultra does produce slightly brighter, slightly cleaner images as a whole. Like, the processing on the S21 Ultra is really good. The much larger sensor does help out a lot. I would say that the iPhone 12 Pro Max with a slightly larger sensor would be slightly better at night mode photos, but this sensor on the S21 Ultra here, it's way bigger than what the iPhone 12 Pro Max has. So yeah, it's gonna be pretty similar across the board. Ultra wide night mode is why I really think the S21 Ultra takes a win here. iPhone 12 series as a whole, they have terrible ultra wide photography with night mode on. Like, the photos are over sharpened, it's a mess. Like, I really don't understand why it's not a polished look. Usually, when Apple gives us features like these late, that's just how it is. We got the ultra-wide photography with night mode late. I really don't understand why we didn't get a polished night mode here. Even the selfie night mode is pretty much terrible compared to the S21 Ultra. I mean, the S21 selfies are pretty much top-notch across the board, but nonetheless, night mode, it's not impressive. Like, ultra-wide and selfies, it doesn't look good, not in the slightest. So the main camera night mode comes close to the S21 Ultra. I still think the S21 does a better job. You may or may not like it, depending on your personal taste, like the colors and all that. Nonetheless, let's move on to portraits. Well, usually this is where iPhones just take the win, because Samsung hasn't really had a good history with portraits and human subjects as a whole. They usually tend to smooth out skins, their skin tones aren't very accurate and all that, while iPhones are usually amazing at it. That's not really the case now. Samsung has essentially caught up. Like, iPhones are great with portraits, but so is the S21 Ultra, and that also ties into the selfie camera portraits as a whole. The selfie camera on the S21 Ultra quite easily gives some of the most detailed selfies that I've ever seen, and it's almost like a new feature for the S21 Ultra because none of the previous Samsung devices have ever given such nice and crisp selfies. That's something to keep in mind. So, overall cameras, well, I think photography is a win. Like, what do you think? I personally believe the S21 Ultra is so good with photos that it deserves a win in this situation. Like, there are very few instances where I feel like, yeah, the S21 Ultra isn't that good. And speaking of portraits, we do have night mode portraits on the S21 Ultra, just like the iPhone 12 Pro Max. But Samsung also baked in night mode selfie portraits. That's not present in any of the iPhones, so if you really want night mode selfie portraits, well, the S21 Ultra is the way to go. Man, the number of features you can get on the S21 Ultra is really staggering. Then for video, well, this is where the iPhone takes quite a major win, because in normal daylight, usually what I've seen happen is that both take very good video, but the iPhone, in certain instances it gets better dynamic range, it has better exposure control sometimes, it gets slightly better detail, but usually it's very hard to notice even with side-by-side comparisons. So like you get the point, right? The iPhone and the S21 Ultra are very close in good daylight, but when you go to the medium to low light situations, the harsher conditions essentially, well, there the iPhone easily takes a win because it just looks so good, so detailed. Like the video quality you can get in the harsher conditions is really something to reckon with. The S21 Ultra, unfortunately, it has a smearing issue that I've noticed multiple times and I've talked about it before. It really doesn't look good in low light, and even in backlit situations, it's very much noticeable. So yeah, kinda unfortunate for the S21 Ultra here, but credit where due, the iPhones still are king when it comes to video, essentially. Versatility once again better on the S21 Ultra as you'd expect, but I mean 10 times zoom in video, who even uses that? Nonetheless, so cameras as a whole, I think photography is a win for the S21 Ultra. If that is your main goal, main focus, well then the S21 Ultra is gonna serve you very well. If you want videos, however, just like every other person on the planet, you're gonna have to go for an iPhone. So, with that said, well, I think the S21 Ultra is a better overall smartphone. It does a fantastic job. It has very consistent and very good cameras. It has great battery life. It has fairly good performance. I mean, yeah, Exynos 2100 does have some heating issues, but you know, it's not really that big a deal. As for displays, once again, 120Hz, easy winner here. Design, I feel this is way better looking. So overall, I think as a smartphone, disregarding, you know, the iOS versus Android thing, I think the S21 Ultra does take a win here. So with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, do hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will be seeing you guys later. Cheers.